know we talk so much about Vanderbilt's offense, but what is their defense?
Yeah, really veteran group. I think just looking at it today, I think there's like 8 of the 12 guys up front have already graduated. There's a lot of faces that we've played. Certainly since I've been here, it's a long, athletic group that plays extremely hard.
Coach, this offense has been rolling these past few weeks here, scoring tons of points. Just for these final 2 games here, you go to a Vandy environment that has kind of excelled this year. What are you looking for this offense to excel on the road in another hostile environment?
Yeah, stay aggressive, focus on execution. Again, for us, there was a point in time in this season where there was no time to think about anything other than just improvement and taking one day at a time. And so that, I think, is the challenge now. We all know what we're playing for, but it's going to come down to having a great, I know it's coach speak, right, but a great finished week of preparation, focus on the execution, and sticking to really what's gotten us in this position.
Coach, you talk about the experience of the line. What else kind of sets them apart that presents challenges?
Yeah, really well coached. I mean, I think we know Clark Lee and his staff have done a great job. There is a ton of pressure when they need to pressure, but they also keep things in front of them. So I think it's this balance, certainly from a play caller standpoint, but also quarterback standpoint and players of being patient, taking what they give them, and choosing the right time to take the shots downfield, if you will.
Coach, the wide receiver improvement, how much of that is just individual guys getting better? How much of it's the changes in the offense? How much of it's Cutter playing so well, or is it all three? Like, what has spurred that group, I guess?
I just think, being unselfish is the starting point, and in a way, just maybe because, there wasn't maybe any one single guy that just took it over initially. I think, so much of the receiver play goes down to embodying the whole position, if you will, physicality on the perimeter. Like, that's been the starting point with that group, which has created explosive plays, the focus on just execution, playing fast. I'm just proud of the group as a whole because it just seems like every week somebody new is ready to step up when we need them, and I think that's the mark of a great unit.
In that room specifically, Jamori Macklin posted something this week about his impact off the field and how maybe he hasn't had the most productive year on the field, but he feels like he's made an impact on this program and on this fan base. What can you say about Jamori and how he has had an impact this year?
Yeah, I just think, a lot of learning lessons, that happen in this environment that you can't maybe get other places. And Jamori's a guy that's been through it. He's worked as hard as anybody else to come out here and be as productive as he can. And, it maybe hasn't happened in a lot of ways how he wanted it to, but his influence on this team's been tremendous. But there's another guy who could have shut it down 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, and like in back-to-back games in critical situations is there still making plays for us. And so I just, again, I'm appreciative of those guys, that group. I've coached them for 8 to 10 years. It's sometimes a hard group to coach, but this group this year, there's been a level of unselfishness. There's been a level of mentorship from the older guys to a talented younger group, and that's what it's all about.
What lessons can you take with what you all did on the offensive line this year and how you build that group moving forward?
I think a ton. I think I don't feel we brought in a bunch of guys that thought they were owed much. It was a bunch of guys that had something to prove, and we mixed that with the current guys that have been here. And so I think lesson one is always development and develop the guys you do have who can show the newcomers the ropes. But I do also think you got to bring guys in that have a lot to prove. And I think when you look at where Woolley came from and you look where Shiaz came from in particular and Braun came from and what he had to prove, I just think those 5 guys in particular have really put their heads down and gone to work.
Coach, the offense has been a lot more up-tempo the past couple of weeks. Is that something you look to keep going for in the next coming games, and is it something you really like what you've seen so far?
I think so. I know we've talked about every game has a life of its own. Certainly it just seems every week the volume of defense that we're seeing, and as good as people are, as you get into later weeks and the formation and what the play is, and so for us, the ability to use tempo, number one, gets us to think less. You know, we got a lot of young players out there, as you guys know, not just whether it's cutter, it's the receivers, so on and so forth. So it's plays that we know how to execute, plays that we've executed for a long time. And then we think, obviously, just like all of us, when you get tired, you know, you don't want to move as fast or you don't want to talk as much and communicate. And so I think those advantages for us have been critical.
How much have you seen defenses now countering to the changes you guys made schematically on offense?
Yeah, it's a back and forth. You know, again, it's tough. I think in the last 3, 4, 5 weeks, you know, I think you look at Cutter's completion percentage to start. We're just going to try to take exactly what they're giving us, take easy completions over and over again. And so, you know, I think defensively it's the battle of, okay, we're going to give you those, you know, just because you don't want big plays to happen. But again, football will humble you quick. We know there has been improvement, but we have got to stay the course, keep improving. We got a big week coming up.
Coach, Josh Brown was saying a couple weeks ago that when you're a transfer, it can sometimes be difficult to assimilate into the culture of your new spot, but that guys like Jagger and Josh Caddis really went out of their way to welcome the transfers. Did you witness any of that, or does that surprise you?
You know, I've kind of said it since I've been here. It starts at the top, and you know, Coach Stoops is as you know, authentic from a leadership standpoint as there is, and that generally filters down to the leaders and the leadership group, and then the rest of the players. And so I just have always felt, from a culture standpoint, the environment that he sets, you know, makes it easy in a way to bring new players into it, because I think they buy in quickly, and I think you're seeing that with that group.
Diego Pavia obviously gets the lion's share of attention when people talk about Vandy. But are there any guys on that defensive unit that kind of jump out at you off the tape and say, hey, this guy's really playing well?
Yeah, and you know, I won't get into the specifics, but it is a deep group for sure. You know, I think the nickel number 2 is as good a player as we've probably seen. He's extremely active all over the place. Again, what they've done a great job of is getting length at almost every position. I think you look at their back end, their corners are long, their defensive ends are long, their linebackers play extremely hard. And, you know, so I just think to kind of see, again, being in the league, you know, 3 years ago and now being back in the league, the transformation they've had to acquire the talent they have that fits their scheme has been impressive.
Coach, it seems like, you know, about a month ago, it seemed like reaching a bowl game would, you know, be a far-fetched dream, but now, you know, you're on the brink of it. You know, do you feel like the guys feel any sort of pressure at all, knowing that, you know, one wins a bowl game, and if so, you know, how do you keep that on going forward?
Probably. You know, I think that's natural for all of us when you have to battle back from where you started, and, you know, naturally want to feel like this one is the biggest one. But I think we just all have to revert back to our experience, the players, the coaches, the understanding of, you know, we've coached in Sugar Bowls and we've coached in Final Four appearances, and it always just comes back to the process and sticking to what's got us there, one day at a time. You know, you got to be where your feet are, and where our feet are right now is we just finished a great Tuesday practice. We got a great opportunity for Wednesday, and as you know, in this profession, we know exactly where we're at every single minute of every single day, and so we just got to stick to that process.
Very good.